That's no moon.
Hello there, I'm Tom from That's No Moon, and today's battle report is a little bit different to normal. You may have heard on a recent episode of our podcast me talking about trying to come up with a list to play in upcoming 2-day tournaments. Well, I put it to our Discord to choose me a list to play, and I was told it would be interesting to see the two lists play against each other. So in today's battle report, James takes charge of my Luke Quad Tauntauns list, while I play a double Dark Trooper Imperial Remnant list. If you've been enjoying our content, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, or consider joining our Pateron to support the podcast and our video content. You'll have to forgive the video quality in this battle report. The camera I used was trying to compensate for the darkness of the map, and the footage is a little bit washed out. The list I've given to James comes in at 791 points. It's Commander Luke with push, burst of speed and prepared supplies. 4 squads of Tauntauns with up close and personal, 2 rebel vets with the CMO, and 2 medium blasters. James is a great player, and he only plays rebels, so I'm confident he'll be able to pilot the list well and show me how good it can be. My list is 799 points. It's Moff Giddian with improvised orders, prepared supplies and the Darksaber, 2 squads of Dark Troopers with program loyalty, the frag launcher and the assault cannon, some Death Troopers with an HH-12 and the config, a squad of scouts with duck and cover, a squad of shores with a DLT-19, and some Stormtroopers also with a DLT-19. The battle cards go down, and we end up on battle lines, clear conditions, and sabotage the moisture evaporators. On the setup, I play my Dark Troopers in range of Giddian towards his VAPs, and leave the rest of my list on the side of the table with my objectives.
So my initial thought with the setup was to keep all the Tauntauns together so that they could smash through some of the Imperial Remnant lines. When I played with Tauntauns in the past, I found if they can become spread out, they become quite easily isolated and quite easy to pick off. But by combining them all together would potentially force Tom to either have to split his fire to try and minimise their effectiveness or take them down unit by unit. And I was at the start fairly confident that they could make their way through the troopers that were over there to stop him from being able to claim the objectives.
I play Assault, the generic 3-pip, while James plays Standing Orders. He gives his order to Luke, and I give my 3 orders out. I give 1 to a squad of Darks, Moff Giddian, and some Death Troopers, and my last squad of Dark Troopers get an order from Entourage. I give out dodges with Independent as I'm playing Remnant. With the priority I pull from my stack. I get a core, and my Storms double move to the first Vaporator. James decides to start the game by going to the bag. I'm sure he's trying to try and keep Luke to be the last thing he activates this round. He pulls a Tauntaun and double moves, gaining a dodge with each move with Agile. And with Relentless, he shoots into my Scout Troopers. With 4 red dice and Sharpshooter, I have heavy cover down to light cover, and then with low profile, I bump it back up to cover 2. James has a crit, so I can't spend my dodge, and I lose a single man. As James shot with up close and personal, he gains a dodge to leave that squad with 3 dodges and cover from the landing pad. I'm now worried that the rest of my Tauntauns are going to do the same and wipe out my squads before they even get to activate. I pull a core and I tap improvised, fishing for that special forces, but I get Dark Troopers. I move up and I take an aim as my second action. Darks get 2 activations, so this will be great for the second time. James now pulls a core token, double moves his vet to the VAP so that they can start working on that for the next turn. I then get my second heavy token. Again, I take an aim and I move, being careful to avoid the range on James's Mark II critical shots. James gets another core, so aims and standbys with his Mark II. This is some good area denial, as I'm going to end up triggering that before I can shoot the standby off. I get another core, leaving only the token that I actually want in the bag. So I go with my shores. I choose not to move to the objective in fear of being wiped out before they can take the objective. So I shoot the Tauntauns that moved up and shot my scouts. All I do is give them a suppression. Going with his second squad of Tauntauns, James double moves, again getting 2 dodges from Agile, and then he gets 3 hits with Relentless. I spend a dodge and I don't lose any guys, and he gets another dodge for up close and personal. Finally pulling my scouts, I don't rally. I'm now slightly worried as they can't move away from danger, so I choose to shoot the Tauntauns. James just has to defend a crit, and he takes a wound. Now able to activate some more Tauntauns, James moves and shoots my scouts, who again just take a suppression. I move my Death Troopers up and I stand by, which gives them an aim. I'm trying to play a little bit more defensively with them, and from the position they're in now, they're cutting off an early Luke charge into my lines. James activates a core and he double moves up to his second Vaporator. I activate my Dark Troopers, who move up and with an aim from the first turn leave James's vets on the Vaporator with 5 to defend. He loses 3 men. This is actually better than it sounds on a rebel dice, and with the heavy weapon still alive, he still has the important critical keyword. James activates his second Mark II, who shoot the Dark Troopers that just moved up. Hoping to get good use out of the critical keyword, and as I get no cover, James just shoots, but he hits the armour. Deciding to go with Moff Giddian, I move up and I take a dodge. I don't want him defending shots before he needs to, and I want to keep him out of range with the double move burst of speed from Luke. James goes with his last unit of Tauntauns, keeping Luke until his last activation. He has enough room to move and shoot without triggering any of my Death Troopers standby. So he moves twice and shoots into my Darks again. He gets 4 hits and they all go to armour. James gets a third dodge on the Tauntauns from up close and personal. With my last activation of the round, I move up with my Dark Troopers to have line of sight on the Tauntauns, and I trigger James's standby on his Mark II. James takes a shot into the Darks and gets a crit, which I manage to block. I then shoot the Tauntauns with both the assault cannon and the blast gun. I get 6 hits, and James spends 3 dodges, and then he takes 3 wounds on that unit. James's last activation of the round is Luke. He's considering popping Burst of Speed to get Luke into melee really early in the game. He's got Impact and Pierce, so he knows that he's going to do good work on Dark Troopers, but he worries about not killing them as they get 2 activations, so he can take 2 rounds of hits from them. He's also considering getting into range 1 of both units of Dark Troopers and playing I Am a Jedi. This would then stop both units from being able to attack in the next round. In the end, James decides to move up to cover. This keeps Luke safe, but also allows him to have the potential to make a dive in turn 2. As I made James's list, I know all the command cards, so at this point I tell him all of the cards that I have in my hand. As I'm expecting a dive from James, and I don't think I'm going to be able to counter it with any of my command cards, I pick Moff Giddian's 3-pip, a moment of consideration. It gives me fire support should I want it, and James plays Luke's 1-pip, Son of Skywalker, giving him 2 attacks. This is a great play from James, as a lightsaber is the best way to get rid of the Dark Troopers with all of its impact and pierce. My orders go to both Dark Troopers, then I have no other eligible units. James orders Luke, and then I give out my independent.
I knew that if Luke was left out in the open, I would have to either get him into heavy cover and rely on his saves, or try and keep him a bit more safe in melee, knowing that the Dark Troopers are carrying armour and Luke is obviously impact and pierce. I thought that was quite a good way to both keep Luke safe, tie up some Dark Troopers for a couple of turns.
Luke activates. He aims as an action, then pops Burst of Speed to guarantee that he can get into range with jump. He makes a Speed 3 move into my Dark Troopers. On his first attack, he gets 3 with Pierce 2, killing a mini and taking a wound on a second. And then with his Son of Skywalker attack, he gets another 2 with Pierce 2 and kills another Dark Trooper. This is a pretty heavy blow to the unit, but luckily for me, they still have both heavy weapons. Although that's not going to help me while they're still in melee. Going to my bag, I pull a special forces unit and I decide to go with my scouts. I try to rally and I don't. I then decide I'm going to shoot James's Tauntauns. With sharpshooter and an aim from independent, I get two through cover, which James takes. James has made a great play here with the Tauntauns, as I'd expected to be able to tap these Vaporators and be happy in the knowledge that he won't be able to get to mine, as Tauntauns don't care about tapping them. I think James's plan is that I can't tap the Vaporators if I'm dead. James immediately goes with the squad that's just defended. He rallies and gets 2 actions, and trying to work out how to be able to get ram off, as you have to make a full speed move to trigger the keyword. So he does a smaller move as his first movement, and then a full speed move to charge into my shore troopers. They're the only unit that I'd left for that far Vap on the left. I spend a dodge and I have 5 to defend. 2 shore troopers die, and James still gains 2 dodges for the double move with Agile. Activating a Dark Trooper squad, I move towards James's Tauntauns. This will make it harder for James to ram them, but as I used the blast gun in the last turn, with heavy cover, I take a shot, and he takes 4 wounds and loses a Tauntaun. James pulls a core, hits his VAP, and then decides to shoot my Dark Troopers. As he's shooting Dark Troopers, I have no cover, and he has critical 2, which he's hoping to take full advantage of. He gets 3 crits, and I take a single wound on the unit. I activate my Death Troopers. I aim and shoot the lone Tauntaun at range 4 with my HH-12 and the config weapon. With precise 2, I can reroll 4 dice, and I get 3 after cover. In James's words, if I'm going to fail, I might as well fail them all, and he loses the unit. James pulls another Tauntaun and continues to charge into my lines. He rams into my scouts with a double move. This is not what I wanted for my scouts. James rolls 6 into them and gets 6 after the ram fix. He wipes out the squad, and then gets 2 dodges for the double move. Getting a core, I activate my Stormtroopers. They hit the Vaporator, and then I shoot 4 white and 2 red into the Tauntauns, the classic core box dice pool. I get 2 crits. James spends 2 dodges on the hits, and he takes a single wound. James now pulls a core token. He goes with his Mark II, and he shoots my Dark Troopers, hoping for some crits. He gets 3, and I lose another Dark Trooper mini. Going back to my bag, I pull a Shore Trooper. They aim and punch as they're in combat with James. He spends a dodge, his Tauntauns are fine. Getting another core, James taps the Vaporator on the far right, and then he shoots into the Dark Troopers again with a single man and the heavy weapon. He hits me for a crit, and I lose another man. At this point, I'm starting to get worried that James is just going to roll crits and my Dark Troopers are going to... and I'll lose my Dark Troopers pretty quick. Getting Moff Giddian, I use the Observe keyword, and then I double move into melee with Luke. I don't have charge, so I can't hit him this turn, but the Observe will come in handy for the Dark Troopers. Getting his last Tauntauns for the turn, James aims and then moves. With Relentless, he shoots my Stormtroopers. He gets 2 after cover, and I save. And James still gets the 2 dodges from Agile and Up Close and Personal. Knowing that I only have Dark Troopers in the bag, I go with the first set, who still have the rocket on cycle. They move towards the objective and they shoot the vets on the point. I get 5 and James loses the squad. James then goes with his last activation of core, which is a Mark II blaster. He pivots and shoots the Darks, wanting to make use of that critical keyword again. He gets 1 and I take a wound on the rocket guy. I only have 2 heavy tokens left in the bag, which are both the same squad of Dark Troopers in melee with Luke. I aim and punch Luke. After the first attack and the aim and observe tokens, I only get 2 hits. James doesn't spend a dodge and rolls to save and takes a single wound. With my second activation I do the same, and I get 4 hits. He now spends his dodge to make it 3 hits, he saves 1 and takes 2 wounds. Getting to put 3 wounds on Luke feels like a pretty good turn for me. As we go into this turn, I was pretty worried this was going to happen. James plays Luke's 3-pip, I am a Jedi, meaning he can pick 2 units who can't attack this turn. This is huge when one of my units is Dark Troopers, and being able to attack is pretty much the only reason they're in the list. I played Pinned Down. I was hoping James was going to do something else so I could make use of the card effect and put Luke's order token back in the bag. James gives just an order to Luke, and I give an order to each Dark Trooper. Both take a dodge with retinue, and I give out my independent. With my out of combat Dark Troopers, I move up very close to James's objective, and then I shoot the Mark II. After heavy cover, James has 4 to defend, and he lives on 2 wounds left. James goes to his bag and pulls some Tauntauns. He double moves and rams into my Stormtroopers by the objective. After dice fixing, he gets 4 hits, and I only lose a single Stormtrooper. Importantly, as James rammed the unit leader, he stays where he is in base contact with the objective. I go to my bag and I get a Special Forces. I want to save my Death Troopers till later, so I tap Improvise Orders and I go with Moff Giddian. I can't attack, so I choose to disengage as my whole activation. James decides to now go with Luke, who force pushes Moff Giddian back into melee. He's done this so the Dark Troopers can't disengage, and that he's then safe in melee and can't be shot. This was absolutely my plan with the Death Troopers, as they could have done some good damage. The very next turn I pull Special Forces again, and now my Death Troopers have to go. I double move to be in a better position for the next turn. I feel like getting the Mark II off the table may become key later in the game. James now gets a core token and activates a Mark II, who aims and shoots at the Dark Troopers by the objective. This time, James blanks out. Going back to the bag, I get a heavy. I move to finally touch the objective and I put a wound on it. James goes with Tauntauns in combat with my Shores. He rolls the melee and gets 6 hits. I spend a dodge and I roll, and they're completely fine. This time I pull my Shore Troopers, who aim and punch back. They don't get any hits even with the aim. James's Tauntauns reposition and double move towards the other half of the table. They want to be in a good position for turn 4. My Stormtroopers now activate. They hit the objective and then they punch the Tauns. With the aim from Independent, they get 3 hits. James spends 2 dodges, takes a single wound. James's core again hit the objective, and they take another pot shot into my Dark Troopers. He gets 2 crits and I lose the Rocket Trooper. Going with the Dark Troopers in melee with Luke, I dodge and standby. I don't want to disengage as I want options for the next round. For James's last activation, he shoots with his second Mark II, and with critical 2, he still gets nothing. My last activation is the Dark Troopers again, who still can't attack. I spend the token and we call the round done. Going into turn 4, I know that James still has a bunch of good loot cards, as well as the Echo Base 2-pip to allow him to recover. So I play Moff Giddian's 2-pip, You Have Something I Want, to James's Courage of Rebellion. We roll for priority and James gets it. He orders Luke, who gets forced pushback, and a squad of Tauntauns, and I give my orders to Giddian and a squad of Dark Troopers. After the commands have been issued, I pick up that squad of Dark Troopers and I place them with a face down order beyond range 2 of all enemy units. I place them just out of range 2 of James's back objective, and then I token up with Independent and Retinue. James goes to the stack and pulls a core, and he goes with the squad of vets by the objective with the Dark Troopers approaching. They aim and shoot with critical 2 and get 2. I take a wound and I lose the rocket from this squad as well. I decide to go with Moff Giddian before Luke can get a swing off. I observe on Luke for free, then I aim and swing with the Darksaber. Without using the aim, I get all hits. Luke has no dodge and he whiffs the roll. This is a real turning point as I've managed to get rid of his commander, who's the linchpin of the list, and my Dark Troopers are still to activate in front of his more squishy units of rebels. Granted that part of the army does all have critical, and looking at the current state of the objectives, I'm closing in on his last unit can actually score. James now activates a squad of Tauns, who double move into Moff Giddian. After ram and spending the prepared supplies dodge, I save all but one, and I take a single wound. Now activating my Dark Trooper, I move and shoot the squad of rebels on James's back point. With my aim, I get 4 hits for James to save, and all but the unit leader die. Going with the Mark II, James aims and shoots my Dark Troopers out in the open by the Vaporator. They manage to save everything. This squad now immediately activate, hit the objective, and then they shoot the second Mark II, but they get nothing. James then returns fire, and again just gets hits, no crits and no surges to make use of critical. My Storm's in combat with James's Tauntauns, aim and punch, trying to get some wounds before James's Tauntauns can return hits, and I manage to kill a mini. James's Tauntauns in melee with my Shores, aim and punch, and again I lose all but the unit leader. This is turning into a bit of a bloodbath. At this point I think the writing's on the wall. My Shores don't rally and they don't really do much. And then James's last activation of Tauntauns managed to kill my Stormtrooper. I then activate a Death Trooper who aims and shoots James's Mark II, who survives, which leaves my final activation of Dark Troopers, hit the objective, and then shoot James's Mark II. The current board state is that James has 2 VPs to my 4 VPs. He's only got a single mini left who can contest any objectives. That lone vet has 2 squads of Darks quickly approaching, and nothing else in James's list can interact with the objectives, as they're creature troopers and emplacement troopers. As Luke is dead, I know that James is going to play standing orders, so I play Moff Giddian's 1-pip, die at my hand. With retinue and entourage, my Dark Troopers have an order too, and James's order goes to a squad of Tauntauns. I choose to activate Moff Giddian, who observes, aims and then swings. With 2 aims and observe, I get 4 crits. With pierce, I deal 3 wounds. James decides to go with a core. He really wants to get some more crits into the Dark Troopers at this point, but he manages to only roll hits bar a single crit. I roll for that and I take a wound. I pull my Dark Troopers up, I move and I take a shot at the single vet, and he's now off the table. At this point, James has nothing left that can contest the objectives, and the rest of my list still can. We play out a few more activations, but at this point there's nothing that James can do to change the outcome, and we call the game in turn 5.
I did think as the game went on, I knew that I'd have to use the critical keyword on the rebel vets, and then also the emplacement guns, to be able to try and really whittle down the Dark Troopers that were slowly charging towards my lines. And I did feel quite comfortable at the start that if I'd have had critical 2 on each unit, I'd be rolling some crits fairly consistently. However, in this game I managed to roll an awful lot of hits and not very many crits or surges at key times. I think in hindsight I probably could have fire supported a little more and kind of got that critical 4, but it all goes back to the fact that I wasn't rolling crits or surges anyway, and I managed to roll 101 hits. It did feel like when I was shooting the Dark Troopers though, I was consistently putting damage out onto them, and they were slowly getting whittled down as they walked towards me, but potentially not quickly enough for me to be able to stop them in their tracks, and they were able to pick off key pieces of the Rebel Vets lines before I could then really do any damage to them. I thought if Luke had been able to tie up the Dark Troopers for another turn, and I could have had the 2 units of Rebel Vets and the 2 Mark 1 blasters all shooting onto 1 unit of Dark Troopers, that could have been quite successful. But obviously by that point the Dark Troopers had taken off and left Luke in the lurch with Moff Giddian. I think in hindsight I probably should have reacted quicker to the move of the Dark Troopers with the units of Tauntauns, and potentially kept 2 or 3 of the units of Tauntauns over there, whereas I moved towards the middle objective quite late. But I do think that initially was the right play, to try and just keep them as free and far away from Dark Troopers as possible, because they would definitely be the Dark Troopers' target of choice. At the end I did feel quite unlucky to have lost. I think that I don't roll as many surges or crits as I'd have liked on those Dark Troopers, which you have to do with the full armour. But I was not as one-sided as I expected it to be. Obviously the Dark Troopers being super expensive meant that there wasn't too much that could have gone wrong on the other side of the board, other than my Tauntauns just not being able to finish off those 4 Empire units as quickly as I'd have liked them to. And with 1 or 2 different dice rolls, I think it could have gone the complete other way. But my overall take back from my first experience playing Dark Troopers is they're a little scary, but probably not as scary as everyone has made them out to be. And you just need to keep firing at them, and eventually volume of fire will put them down.
Until next time, may the Force be with you.
That's no moon.